I'm back. I'm back in the 3 a.m. groove. I'm back. Back in the 3 a.m. groove. I'm back. Back in the 3 a.m. groove. I'm back. Back in that Marvel groove. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema. Sit down, I gotta get myself hyped up for 3 o'clock in the morning. Let me tell you, anytime I do these 3 a.m. immediate drop reviews and coverage, I gotta get myself hyped up. But I can tell you this much: this show got me hyped up real damn fast, man. I hit play on this bad boy and I was shaking off the cobwebs. Them cobwebs were gone within the first 2 minutes of the show. Oh, it's so good, and it's so good right out the gate. What are we talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into Loki Season 1, Episode 1. And man, I tell you, like I said, man, Marvel don't take very long to get you back in their groove, especially at 3 a.m. But this thing is fantastic. We got one episode this morning, and it's interesting. Of the 3 Disney Plus shows that we've gotten, WandaVision was the only one to drop the first 2 episodes. And while that series was 8, and the way that it's set up, dropping the first 2 episodes together made a lot of sense. I understand why they didn't drop, both episodes on day 1 for Falcon and the Winter Soldier and for this, because it's only 6 episodes. But in both cases, well, at least definitely in Falcon and the Winter Soldier's case, and it feels like in this one, it could have been beneficial to get the first 2 episodes. It seems like Marvel is really doing a lot of their building for the show in those first 2 episodes, and it feels like it takes 2 episodes to get everything set up. So I'll really be interested to see where we go next week with episode 2 and just how much establishing gets done for what our main storyline is. I think this episode does a phenomenal job of laying the land. The whole concept of the TVA and the timekeepers, I'm sure for a lot of people are not something that you're super familiar with. I mean, even me, it's one of those, I am aware of it, but I don't know a lot of TVA stories specifically in and around Loki. If there are, and like I said, I don't know a lot about these comic book stories in particular. So going into the show, it's more oh, what am I gonna get from the MCU? But what the show does, it finds a really interesting way to handle introducing the greater audience to the TVA and the Timekeepers and how all of that works. It's one of these things where the episode kind of throws you into it and then takes a beat to be you know what? I'm sure you're as confused as Loki is right now, so let me fill you in. And I like that they did that, because it's one of those things, like I said, as someone who's not as familiar with the TVA and what they do and where they come from, as I am to other things that Marvel's done. It was kind of a nice little palate cleanse of this is where we are, this is how things work, and now you can kind of enjoy what we're setting up for you. And it is a really good setup episode. Like I said, you get the lay of the land real well. And the character development alone for Loki in this episode is crazy good, man. I mean, it should be no shock to any of us that Tom Hiddleston is an absolute genius. I mean, this is one of my favorite characters in the MCU, hands down, because Tom Hiddleston is so good. And I'm just a fan of the guy in general. Anywhere he pops up, he's phenomenal. But the thing that I think is most interesting, like I said, is that character development that you get inside of this episode. We've spent 10 plus years with Loki, right? And we know all of Loki's stories inside the MCU. The crazy thing with this show is that this is 2012 Avengers Loki. This is a Loki that has not seen all the stuff that we've seen. And the show finds a way for him to kind of grow the way the character grew over the last decade. The way we watch the character evolve, the show does that in a 2-minute montage-y type stretch that's mind-blowingly good. And it allows that 2012 version of Loki to feel like that Infinity War Loki that we got. So I love how they do it, and I love the way in which Tom Hiddleston handles it. Like, you literally watch a transformation happen, like, visually on his face. Like, the guy that you see at the beginning of the show, not the guy you see at the end of the show. And how the show handles that, I just thought was really, really well done. And like I said, overall, I think this episode does a great job of laying the land and giving you a feel of what this show could be. I feel like you could see this show morph a few times, because this episode, laugh out loud funny for 3/4 of this thing. Like, it is absolutely hysterical, and it plays into the things that Tom Hiddleston is great at, plays into the things that Owen Wilson is great at, and watching the two of them play off each other just provides tons and tons of laughs. When I do my spoiler review and you get to see my reactions, you're just going to see a lot of smiles and a lot of laughs on my face. And it's interesting, like, the show literally has you laughing out loud. Then, like, funny things are happening and it becomes more of like a grin. Like, I'm still enjoying this, it's just not making me laugh out loud. And then, like, by the end of the episode, like, you are now, like, you're here. You know what I mean? And you're just getting pulled in. Like, the way it can handle the drama and the comedy, if it's anything like this first episode, the next 5, like, you're really going to be able to enjoy the way that the show can adapt to the things that Loki does. And that's how this show should function, man, because Loki can make you laugh out loud, and he can be, you know, like, I'm gonna take over the world, scary and mischievous. And the way Hiddleston does all of that while simultaneously capturing, like, his first role in the second role in the MCU, like, it's wild how Hiddleston is able to dial the clock back and just immediately capture the same guy who was there for the Avengers in 2012. That's the most fascinating thing for me about the episode and the performances. And it's something that should surprise you, because Hiddleston is an absolute knockout. You know what I mean? Like, he's so freaking good in anything he does, but specifically this role. And it's because this role can allow Hiddleston to go to all these different places. And I love that we sync him up with Owen Wilson, because Owen Wilson can also juggle a lot of the things that Hiddleston can juggle, and they feel like they are a phenomenal pair on screen right out the gate. And I really do enjoy the way that Wilson plays with him. Like I said, that their back and forth is very, very laugh out loud funny, but simultaneously, like, while Owen Wilson is doing all this stuff that's making us laugh, specifically with gags that are specific to Loki, like, there is something that happens to Loki multiple times in this episode where I was, like, in stitches, because I'm like, this is exactly what happens to Loki. No matter where he goes, this is always happening to Loki. And I just love how Wilson can very much sink into the way Hiddleston can kind of go back and forth and do the same thing, and they give you, you know, scenes together that do that, and it's just, it makes me so excited for where this show can go. And as far as where this show can go, story-wise, I'm really fascinated to see where we go, because I think this sets up an interesting conundrum. Like, it's one of these things where the trailers certainly were giving us glimpses at things that we could immediately start theorizing about. And what I love about this episode is this episode answers a bunch of those questions right away. Like, there is going to be one theory, specifically if you're feeling like this show ties to WandaVision, and at the beginning, like during that, like, hey, we're going to teach you about the TVA, they kind of say a lot of things that immediately make you go, ooh, this is totally going to line up with WandaVision, and set up things that are coming. And then they kind of give us a reveal that kind of quells some of those early pre-Loki theories, which I'm cool with, because if you know, especially me and most of the world when it came to WandaVision, like, you were just pulling on every thread to try to figure out the mystery. And again, this is another show that's going to have a mystery. There is a question looming. There's a thing that they got to go do. And what I like is that they give us an answer right away. Like, it's just going to stop some of that theorizing and allow us to kind of enjoy the show. But it's still a massive mystery, because, like, why is what's happening? So I'm fascinated to see where we go. And like I said, I was really impressed with how they got Loki from 2012 to where they need him to be, specifically for this show and for the MCU, I would imagine, in a greater look. So I really loved all of that stuff. Got to give a shout out to director Kate Herron, who I believe is directing all 6 episodes. Really, really good stuff. This is the most cinematic feeling episode of all 3 shows. Like, this episode, just look and feel wise, feels like a movie. And again, because we're playing with Loki's history, there are like cameos like we see characters that we haven't seen in the other 2 shows. And I think seeing that and the way that it's directly tying into that story, it just makes it feel the most cinematic and most movie-like experience-wise. And a lot of that has to do with the look and the visuals. And granted, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, like across the board, the visuals are stunning. But there is a shot in this episode where I was just sitting there, I was like, how much money do they have? Like, they just spend all the money on these shows. But again, I think a lot of it is the storytelling and just the look and feel. I think Herron does a really, really good job of just capturing that Marvel cinematic look and feel, where this one, like I said, feels more cinematic than the other 2 shows, even though, like, you can tell, like, it's not like they're spending more money on this than the other 2. So I'm pumped to see what Kate Herron does as we move forward, directing all 6 episodes, because I really liked what she did with this first one, which, of course, I just skipped right over. I was like, Season 1, Episode 1, we do have a title, and this one is called Glorious Purpose, and it's a perfect title for this show, because this episode gives all of the purpose to Loki, and just using those words like glorious and things of that, like the way Loki talks is another thing that like Hiddleston just is so good at, and the way that they address the way he talks, again, plays into some of the humor. Now, I've obviously talked about our big 3, but there are a couple other people who pop up in this episode that I think, acting-wise, certainly are standouts. One being, and you guys know this, I love her, Wunmi Masaku, who we've seen, of course, from Lovecraft Country. I've seen her now pop up in a few things. She was in that that horror movie on Netflix, His House, which I really, really liked. And what's cool with Wunmi Masaku is, like, the minute she shows up on camera, she immediately grabs your attention. And no different here. Like, very small role, but man, does she grab and she like grabs you by the collar and demands your attention. Like, I love her, and I can't wait to see where we go with her character. The other person, too, to call out is Gugu Mbatha-Raw, who plays a character that's kind of like early on in the episode, kind of has to do with like what's going on with Loki and like what his punishment can do. Very small, very quick, but she definitely popped on screen. So I'll be interested to see how they utilize her, because she is, of course, right here on the screen in the main poster. So like those are your 4 main folks, and all 4 are just fantastic. And like I said, I can't wait to see where we go with this show, because the potential is so high, and it's amazing the way that Marvel can just build that potential and get you psyched. Like, WandaVision kind of was a slow pull. I love the sitcom stuff because I'm a sitcom nerd, and like I said, having those first 2 episodes really kind of set you up for what was coming the rest of the way. But, I mean, Falcon and the Winter Soldier blows your mind with that opening sequence. And then this is just interesting. Like, the way that this show is going to tie into the overall MCU story. Like I said, there's a stretch of time where they say a few words and a few things where you're like, oh, this is definitely tying into all those things that we were starting to kind of get our hands on in WandaVision that we feel like could be setting up the stuff that's coming. And this episode definitely is setting up some stuff. I'm really, really interested to see where they go. So there you go, man. Those are all my non-spoiler thoughts. If I keep talking, I'm going to start saying things that are going to give things about this show away. But there are great moments throughout this whole episode. It's absolutely lock in Loki. Like, I mean, Tom Hiddleston is so locked in. The way they're using the rest of the cast and the story that they're creating. Like, I am like, give me episode 2 right now, man. Like, I am so interested in the mystery that they've created. While we have our main answer, or at least one of the big questions answered about what this mystery is, the mystery in general, I am fascinated by. And I know that by the time we figure out the answers to all of the questions around this mystery, we're going to be set up for whatever is coming to the movie theaters in the overall MCU story. So let's get the old C-Maniac meter up. That's right, man. We're going to rate every single one of these episodes. This is a really, really strong start. I don't want to go too high with this one, but like I said, I mean, it hits all the check marks. Hiddleston already locked in, Owen Wilson locked in, the rest of the cast doing things where I'm like, I can't wait to see what they do. The look and feel of the show is cinematic as anything, and it just immediately feels like something that's a part of the bigger MCU. And I'm fascinated by this story, and I want to see what Kate Herron does going forward. So, like I said, I don't want to go too high, but I'm going to start rock solid. Like, this episode was so good, I'm going to start with a strong 4.5 C-Maniacs out of 5. I probably could go high. This episode is like virtually perfect. But knowing what we've seen with the other shows, I think the show is only going to get better. So we got to give ourselves a little wiggle room there. So we'll start with a 4.5 C-Maniacs out of 5 for episode 1, Glorious Purpose. I was a big old fan. Can't wait to see where we go. Now I want to know what you're thinking, man. Did you wake up at 3 a.m. to watch Loki? And then come find my non-spoilers. Obviously, if you watch Loki, you're probably looking for the spoiler stuff. But if you haven't watched Loki and you're here, what are you excited about, man? This is what the non-spoiler is for. It's for you people who haven't watched the episode yet. So if you haven't watched, man, what are you looking forward to? What are you hoping that we get from Loki? What about what I said about the episode is getting you psyched for your watch later? Definitely let me know all those things. And of course, if you did watch the episode, no spoilers. We'll have a spoiler review where we can talk all the great things that are going on in this show. But if you watched it, man, what are your initial takes? Are you excited? Do you think this is better or worse than WandaVision or Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Is it right on par with what they've done? Do you think this is going to do more for the cinematic universe as we go forward? And what are you looking forward to seeing Tom Hiddleston as Loki do in this show? I'm so fascinated to see how they utilize him to the overall MCU storyline. So anything you're thinking, man, good, bad, indifferent about episode 1 of Loki, down below in the comment section. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the Seaman every Thursday morning. I will be up at 3 a.m. Every Thursday for Loki. I thought yesterday was Wednesday. Woke up late and I was so mad, and then I was so happy because I was like, oh, I can wake up on time and talk to you guys immediately. So you want to be here for all of the Loki coverage. You just like what we're doing when I'm talking movies, TV, trailer reactions. You want to show a little love support for the old C-Man? You haven't yet? Well, jump over there, man. Join C-Maniac Nation by hitting that subscribe button. Hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema, sit down. I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that C-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.